And now it's time for Key Points!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the segment where we will be working on key points. Okay, and as you know, when we are doing our key points, we highlight the title, we highlight bold words, and we set up our paragraphs. In this case, we will be working with the first living being. Okay, so we highlighted that title and we set up our paragraphs. So we have 3 paragraphs all together. And let's do the purpose for reading. Over the ages, many tales have been told to explain the origin of the first living being. This Norse folktale tells how the Scandinavian people, and in parentheses they have Norwegian and Icelandic, thought the first living being was created. Okay, so that's about this passage. So we have over the ages. So that's telling us that over a long time period, many tales. So tales is another word for stories. So many tales have been told to explain the origin. So this is an origin story. So they're trying to explain the origin of the first living being. So many Christians believe that the first living being was Adam and Eve. The Scandinavian people are saying the first living beings originated in this fashion. So this is a folk tale from the Norse people. So the Norse people are from the Norwegian and Icelandic area. If you're not sure where that is, you can go to Google Earth and you can type in Norway or Iceland. Okay, our purpose for reading, we're going to notice how details tell you about the kind of land the Norse people lived in. We're also going to learn the Norse story of the creation of the first living being. Okay, so this is the creation of the first living being. Let's look at our first paragraph. And our first paragraph we know is the intro. So let's put intro. Okay. All right. And it says, in the beginning of time, when darkness covered everything, and before there were earth, sea, and air, an all-powerful spirit called All Father willed everything he wanted into being. Okay, so in that introduction, we see this all-powerful spirit. So this is not a person, it's a spirit. And the spirit is called All Father. Okay, now let's look at paragraph 2. The center of space was a vast gulf, deep and dark. North of this gulf was the home of the cold mist and the dense fog, Niflheim. And I'm not sure if I pronounced that right because I am not familiar with Norse, but you can probably get the pronunciation of that using your internet tools. Niflheim, or fog world. In this pathless world, there was a fountain that fed 12 rivers. And when the waters of these rivers had flowed far from their source, they froze and formed layer upon layer of ice. The piled up ice filled the Gulf of Niflheim. So this is pretty much telling me like the setting. We got the center of space was a vast gulf, deep and dark. And north of this gulf was the home of the cold mist and the dense fog. So that's helping my mind create a setting. Okay? And if we're not sure of the meaning of some of the words, we can actually look it up. We could look up golf, because that may not be a word that you know. You might know the sport golf, Golf, but you may not know the word gulf. Okay, so we can look that word up. North of this gulf, I'm seeing it again, was the home of the cold mist. Now we know what mist is. When you're in the shower and it's coming down, the little droplets can create a mist. And the dense fall of Niflheim. So Niflheim is a location. So we are going to highlight that location. And they call it the fog world. Okay. In this pathless world, so there's no paths, nobody's walking, there's no place to go. So in this pathless world, there was a fountain that fed 12 rivers. Okay, so we have a fountain, and the fountain is making 12 rivers. So I'm imagining this big, large fountain and 12 rivers coming out of it. And when the waters of these rivers had flowed far from their source, they froze and formed layer upon layer of ice. The piled up ice filled the Gulf of Niflheim. Okay, so let's see about the last paragraph. Southward from this cold, bleak world was the land of light and fire. Muspelheim. Muspelheim. All right, so we have southward, and then it looks like we have north. So it looks like we're now in the south of the world. We have Muspelheim. From here, a warm wind arose, flowed over the ice in Niflheim, and melted some of it. As the water vapor drifted upward, it formed into clouds, and as these clouds cooled, they changed into frost. Layer by layer, this frost also piled up in the vast gulf. In time, it came about that through the action, let's highlight that because that's important. Through the action of the cold and heat and the will of our Father, a gigantic creature, Ymir, came to life. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Because he was born from the frost, Ymir was called a frost giant. Ooh, so here we meet the frost giant. Okay. Okay. And that's our last paragraph. And so we know that the last paragraph is also our conclusion. So we have conclusion. Okay. All right. We have a couple words that we should look up. We want to look up golf. Okay. So let's look up golf. And we're going to go to vocabulary.com. And we're going to go to look up. And golf was one of the first words. So we have golf. All right. And they say
Golf.
gulf, deep, wide, and open, filled with water. A gulf is any vast and seemingly unabridged area. So it's a deep, wide, and open, deep, wide, and often filled with water. A gulf is any vast and seemingly unbridgeable area. So it's so huge that you can't put a bridge there to cross the gulf. Okay, and another word that I wanted us to look up was bleak. So let's see, what is bleak?
Bleak.
And it says bleak. Something that is bleak is gloomy and depressing. If it's raining and dark, you might describe the night as bleak. If you have looked for work and no one will hire you, you could describe your prospects as bleak. So that is bleak. So it said southward from this cold, bleak world was the land of light and fire. Okay, so we said that bleak was gloomy and depressing, right? Okay, so south of that gloomy and depressing world was the land of light and fire. So it's probably not as depressing as the north, which was the Nephilim, the fog world. The south world looks like it was called Muspelheim, or fire world. So after reading that, let's see if we can understand what we just read. Find the main idea. We're going to choose one. What was the main idea of this passage? How to make a giant? Where life first came from? What happens when it gets cold? Why we have hot and cold water? Well, let's think about it. That passage did not tell us how to make a giant, so I'm not sure that that's the best answer. Where life first came from, maybe, because we did learn that it is an origin story, so maybe that one. What happens when it gets cold? Well, it didn't really tell us what happens when it gets cold, so that is probably not a good answer. Why we have hot and cold weather? It was not trying to explain why we have hot and cold weather. So the best answer is where life first came from. That's the main idea. And so we're going to pick B, and we're going to put B right here. Okay, now it wants us to find the facts. We're going to write true or false. And you don't have to write the entire word. You can just put T for true and F for false. A, in the beginning of time, the whole world was in darkness. Now, according to this in the intro, it says in the beginning of time when darkness covered everything. Oh, yes, there's our proof. In the beginning of time when darkness covered everything. Yes. So for that answer, we can say that that is true. So let's put a T for true. The center of space was a large, deep gulf. Let's see if that is true. The center of space was a large, deep gulf. I remember reading about gulf in paragraph 2. So let's see. The center of space was a vast gulf. Deep and dark. Well, there's deep. But what does vast mean? Let's see. What does vast mean? And if we look up vast.
Vast.
If you're in a boat out on the water and you can't see any land, then the body of water you're in is probably vast or enormous. Oh, so I'm seeing right now that vast means enormous or large. Okay, so the question said, the center of space was a large, deep gulf. Large, deep gulf. Let's see. The center of space was a vast or large gulf, deep and dark. Yeah, that's true. So we're going to put true. Number 3. The north part of the world was called the land of light and fire. Now let's see. The north part. Okay, so that's saying the north part. So let's see if it was the north part. Let's see. North of the Gulf was the home of the cold mist and the dense fog, Niflheim, fog world. In this pathless world, there was a fountain that fed 12 rivers. And when the waters of these rivers had flowed far from their source, they froze and formed layer upon layer of ice. So that sounds cold. So let's see if we read the question again. The north part of the world was called the land of light and fire. Oh, wait, the land of light and fire? That was here. Southward from this cold, bleak world was the land of light and fire. Oh, that is not true. The north part was called the land. No, the north part was called something else. It was called Niflheim. So that is false. It was not the land of light and fire. Now they did the rest for us. So those are some sample responses. Now it wants us to put it in the correct order. Which did we read first? There was an all-powerful spirit called Al Father. Yes, I remember reading that. Was that in the first paragraph? Yes. Okay, so that's a possibility of being first. Let's see, what could be second? The area north of the Gulf was called Niflheim. That could be second. Let's see, the ice piled up and filled the Gulf of Niflheim. And that could be third. So let's see. It says the area north of the Gulf was called Niflheim. Okay. The dense fog Niflheim in this path, let's see. The center of the space was vast. North of this gulf was the home of the cold mist and the dense fog, Niflheim fog world. In this pathless world, there was a fountain that fed 12 rivers, and when the waters of these rivers had flowed far from the source, they froze and formed layer upon layer. The piled up ice filled the Gulf. Oh, okay, so I think that one came second. And the dense fog, Niflheim fog world, that was first. So I'm thinking that the area north of the Gulf is called Niflheim. I think we read about that second. And then the ice piled up and filled the Gulf. I think we read about that third. Because it says right here, the ice formed layer upon layer. Yes. Wow. All right, and here's the last part. Go beyond the facts. This folktale comes from people who live in the colder regions of the world. What one thing does this story tell you about people? So what one thing does this story tell you about people? Well, they gave us the answer D. They said people think in terms of things that are familiar to them. Yes, that is a good answer. People like reasons for things? Maybe. People like stories of make-believe? Not all. So that's probably not the best answer. People are afraid of giants? That actually sounds like a ridiculous answer. People think in terms of things that are familiar to them? Well, yeah, they made this origin story up because it says that these people lived in the north. So I agree. D is the best answer. People like reasons for things. Not all people, but that was the second to best answer, but we'll mark it off. And now it's time for some vocabulary. Let's see. So far they gave us A. Gulf is a wide, deep opening. They gave us B. Bleak was bare and gloomy. C, dense is thick, hard to see through. Let's see. D, the going of something. Yes, action is the going of something. Did they give us E? No, they did not give us E. E, self-control. What is self-control? Oh, that is will. When you have will, you have self-control. F, large, very big. Oh, we learned that was vast. Vast is large and very big. G, to float. To float. Oh, they gave us G, drift. H, to wish. When you wish for something, oh, will is also H. So will actually has two answers or two possible meanings. I, the beginning, where something comes from. Is that Norse or source? Oh, source is the best answer. And J, an early word for Scandinavians, especially people from Norway and Iceland. And that would be the Norse people. The Norse people. So when we think about people from Norway or Iceland, then you can certainly go onto your Google Earth app and see exactly where Norway is. Okay, so let's see, where is Norway? I have never been to Norway personally. I have been to Finland, and I have been to Sweden, and I have been to Iceland and Denmark, but I have never gone to Norway. And that is a country on my list that I would like to visit. It looks like it's taking a long time for the Google Earth to launch. So this is a perfect spot for me to end. So if you have Google Earth on your device, then you can look it up. Oh, there it is. It just came just as I was getting ready to end. All right, then let's see if it'll let me go in. Oh, here it is. We're going to skip that. All right, let's do our search tool and let's type Norway. Okay, where is Norway? And it's going to let me fly in. Oh, there it is, Norway. So people of Norwegian descent and Iceland. Oh, I see, because if you look, Norway is very, very close to Iceland. Okay, so let's back up here. And you can check it out on your device. All right. So that ends our lesson for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. And until next time, keep on reading. And we're going to go ahead and end our session.